Hi friends, my name is Lorraine, and today I'm going to be doing my wrap-up for the month of February, where I read a total of 8 things. So February was a great reading month for me personally. I had mostly 4 and 5-star reviews. My lowest rating was a 3-star review, and even that wasn't a bad book necessarily. So I am very pleased with what I read in February, and even though I read less than I read in January, I still feel very accomplished and very happy with what I did end up reading. So I'll go ahead and start with the books that I finished for my TBR. I only got to 3 of the 6 that I intended to read, but I don't think that's too bad considering the fact that February is a really short month and there was an entire 2-week period in February that I just did not feel like reading. I just really wanted to watch movies and TV, so I did. So I still feel pretty accomplished with my overall reading and how many books I actually got to on my TBR. So the first book I read from my TBR is This Side of Home by Renee Watson. This is a YA contemporary that follows a main character and her twin sister in Portland, Oregon when their neighborhood begins to go through gentrification. And this book discusses that quite a bit, but it is such a traditional YA novel and other aspects dealing with romance and family and friendships, but also dealing with the issues of gentrification and just talking about the impact of that on the main character's Black neighborhood and community. This book was fantastic. I absolutely loved the writing style in it. It was so simple but beautiful and very impactful. I think if you're a fan of Anne Brasher's writing style, like The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, you can really enjoy this because, like I said, it's just very simple but absolutely beautiful. Like, when I say simple, I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it's just so easy to just fall into and just read and enjoy, and I loved it so much. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. After that, I picked up Piecing Me Together, also by Renee Watson, and I was also obsessed with this book. This is a YA contemporary that follows a main character who goes to a private school on scholarship and also participates in an after-school program and just discusses the implications of that and her relationship to poverty and race. And I think that this book did such a great job of discussing poverty in general. I adored the discussions in this book. And again, while this book does deal with some of those bigger issues, it is also very traditional contemporary YA dealing with friendship, family, coming of age issues, and Renee Watson is just amazing, and now she is officially an auto-read author. I love her writing so much, and the way that she blends these bigger topics with traditional, fun, and kind of fluffy YA concepts, I think just makes her books so wonderful and easy to read, but still very memorable at the same time. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars, unsurprisingly. And the last book that I got to on my TBR was American Street by Zoboi. This is a YA magical realism that follows a main character named Fabiola. She is coming to the United States. I think in my TBR I mentioned she was immigrating. She is actually already a United States citizen, but her mother is not. So she is coming to the United States from Haiti with her undocumented mother, and her mother gets caught up in immigration issues and gets detained, and she has to move forward and go to Detroit to meet with her cousins and her aunt. And this book deals with a lot of those immigration issues, but it also deals with dating violence, family issues, religion, culture, how that blends into coming to America from being in another country for the majority of your life. And I thought that this book was so beautifully done. I do want to put a content warning out there for physical violence in a dating relationship. That is in this book. It is not necessarily resolved, but it's also not romanticized, and I think that that's also an important thing to have in books. I think it's important for violent relationships to be resolved within the pages because I think readers can see that. But this book also looked at it in a realistic sense that sometimes violent relationships and abusive relationships aren't always clean and easy to discuss and move through, and I thought this book did a really great job of that. But major content warning for that because it is upsetting at times, and if that is something that you do not feel comfortable with reading, maybe skip on this book or just make sure that you're in a good place emotionally to walk into this. I really, really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. Moving into my non-TBR picks, I picked up They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is actually a book that I started reading in January, but it kind of carried over to February. I listened to the audiobook. There are 3 separate narrators for this, and they did such a good job. I think it really added to the overall effect of the audiobook and made it really enjoyable, but oh my god. I cried so hard when I finished this book, and obviously the title tells you what's going to happen, but I still felt betrayed. I felt like these 2 characters are clearly good people, and they're so young, and they're just doing everything so right in the book that they can't die. Maybe this was just a trick and they will be saved in the end, but I was so disappointed. And that's not a spoiler, because the title tells you they both die at the end, and they do. But I didn't want them to. I was so sad. This book is really incredible. It is a YA contemporary that follows 2 main characters and some other characters as well along the way, who find out that that day they are going to die, and they meet up and form a friendship in the last hours of their life. And it's so sad, but also I think has a really great narrative around death and living your life and making sure that you take time to make experiences for yourself, but still think about the safety implications of that. I liked that as well. It wasn't just like, live your life to the fullest at all dangerous costs, like just don't worry about safety. That was not a narrative in this book, and I really appreciated that. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I know that my thoughts on this book are probably not very concise, and this probably told you nothing, but I am just so convoluted about my feelings on this book because it was so emotionally draining, but also emotionally satisfying at the same time. It left me broken, and I think that's just Adam Silvera's thing. Next, I picked up Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. I also listened to this on audiobook. I really enjoyed the narrator for this. I think she did a really great job. This is a YA contemporary that follows a main character who has been accused of murdering a baby, and it just follows her narrative as she moves from prison to a group home and kind of deals with some stuff on her own that make things a little bit difficult. I don't want to give too much away because I think that a big part of this book is watching everything unfold. Some things that I really enjoyed about this book is I think that it did a great job of narrating the issues with the system that we place kids in when they do get into trouble. I think that it did such a great job of just showing how there are issues with that system and not sugarcoating that. However, there were 2 major things in this book that I really did not enjoy and that kept me from giving it that full 4 to 5 star rating, and that was it is absolutely fat phobic. Every single character who is fat in this book is described so disrespectfully, and it's just hard to read. So I did not enjoy that. I thought that was incredibly problematic. And there were also some slurs used against a queer character, and that sucked, and it was not corrected, and I did not enjoy that. So while this book was good at highlighting some really important issues with the justice system for children, there were also some problematic content to it. I think this is one of those books that you can enjoy it, and you just have to acknowledge the problematic content that it comes with. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. I also listened to Dear Ijeawele, or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Points by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and I really enjoyed this. This was narrated by January Lavoie, who narrates the Diviners books, so that initially drew me in, and I also like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and this was just really nice to listen to. I think that a lot of the points that were made are definitely points that I already believed in, but it was nice to hear that kind of reiterated and kind of strengthen my resolve to be a feminist, especially an intersectional feminist. I think that that's something that Chimamanda does really well for the most part. I know that there have been issues in the past. This video is not to discuss that. This particular piece I enjoyed. The only thing that kind of kept me from giving it that full 5 stars is when it talked about relationships, it was heteronormative relationships. And I didn't enjoy that because feminist issues don't just apply to heteronormative relationships. So I would have liked to see that explored a little bit more, but it wasn't. However, it was still really good, and I still really recommend the audio narration, which I think was only about an hour or so long, so not even that long. And I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I also picked up one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and that was Bingo Love by T. Franklin. And this was just so incredible. I cried so hard. This is somewhere between a really sad comic and just really happy. It's very bittersweet in the end. That's all I can really say as far as like the ending, but it follows two main characters, mainly from the point of view of one, and they end up falling in love as teenagers in the 60s, and their parents do not agree with that and separate them, and then they meet again later in life and have kind of a reconnection, and then the story just blossoms from there, and it's so beautiful but so sad. And I do want to put a content warning for cheating in there, though I felt like it was dealt with responsibly and didn't romanticize or normalize cheating. Definitely discussed kind of the issues around that, but if you read the comic, I think you'll kind of understand why it happened. So just putting that out there, I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And finally, I picked up Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling because I did feel like I was getting ready to sink into a reading slump. So I just picked up a favorite of mine that I knew I could just enjoy and relax reading and not have to worry about. So I picked up Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and I listened to it both on audiobook and then I also read the print version. And I loved it. I'm not going to say too much about the plot because I feel like everyone knows what goes on in Harry Potter, and it's not like I'm rereading the series. It was just kind of I just feel like reading it, so I will. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars, and I feel like it was exactly what I needed to kind of pull me out of that reading slump and just refresh me. And I wasn't in a reading slump because the books that I read this month were obviously really fantastic. Like, I gave them really high ratings, but somewhere towards the middle of February, I just did not feel like reading. I just wasn't in the mood. I didn't really want to sit down and cuddle up on the couch and read. I wanted to sit down and cuddle up on the couch and watch a movie or a TV show. I was also doing a lot of house sitting in February, so I wasn't home, and I don't know, I just can't get super comfy in other people's houses to like settle in and read. Like, reading is something I like to feel very comforted and relaxed when I'm doing, and I just can't do that at other people's houses when I'm technically working and like watching their house and all that other stuff. So I didn't read as much as I thought I would, but I read some really quality books, and even though I felt like I was in a little bit of a reading slump, it still wasn't a bad reading month. And I'm rambling at this point, so I'm just going to end the video here. Thank you all so much for watching. I will leave links in the down bar below for my other social media sites such as Goodreads, Instagram, Twitter. You all should totally check me out on there because on Twitter I'm usually ranting about stuff. On Goodreads I'm talking about how much I love books, and on Instagram I am posting whenever I remember to, which hasn't been for a while, but maybe I will start again soon. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, stay weird.